This is Mark Hafen and Heather Lewis from Animal Arts, and we are here to talk to you about site selection for a freestanding clinic. And this probably is the beginning of the critical process in terms of the actual project. So this is what you're going to build upon, obviously. So we're going to talk about the market and the physical constraints of the process as the real drivers. And let's jump in and talk about market. So the market is a function of where you're drawing people from.
Location.
Yes, keep it simple.
Right.
Yes, I think we're done with the talk now. I think we
We
got to
can go
something else.
home.
I think this is, I think on a very simplistic level, yes, that was the talk in terms of market. But when you look at the location, there is a kind of you can look at maps and you can have demographic studies done, this kind of thing. But a lot of it's just plain seat of the pants. You can drive your area and you can see where natural neighborhoods occur, where traffic patterns are, where obstacles are, and you can work from that. So it isn't rocket science, and you're probably better off doing it by seat of the pants than hiring a high-priced consultant to do this particular thing, because you're really trying to zero on what is the actual market in your area. What is the physical market? Where you're drawing from?
Absolutely, and you want to think about areas of future growth, especially if you're going to be at your new location for any length of time. So, for example, you wouldn't want to develop a veterinary hospital in a ratty little strip mall that's 30 years out of date and going downhill, because that's just wasting money. Your building is a vehicle for you to do well in your business, and in order for you to do well in your business, you have to think for the future and where you need to place your building.
I think that really is key. I think you can't emphasize that enough. If we're talking about location, then the future location really is where you want to be. You got to figure out where is your market going. So the process of assessing your market, you can once again, once you've driven in the area and looked at it, then you can start looking at it and comparing it to what would be kind of the standards. And so we use a 2 to 3 mile radius in the suburban area, 8 to 10 minute drive, 8 to 10,000 people per doctor. So those are kind of rules of thumb. But I'd go back to say, I think you have to really feel like the market works for you before you start applying data like this to it.
And it's interesting also that just think as a client, sometimes like a big barrier, like a very large highway, can actually keep somebody from driving to your hospital, even if it's only a 5-minute drive. It's just the thought of having to get off on the freeway, exit, and go. I don't know. It's amazing how
it's kind of
these
like this
physical barriers.
Yeah, kind of like being on the wrong side of the tracks. I mean, if the affluent neighborhood is on the left-hand side of the tracks and you make the mistake of building on the right-hand side, even if it's a good deal, it was a wrong move. So, conventional wisdom says that you ought to be in a suburban area and a young family with kids, but that's not actually where it's all going to happen. And so there's a lot of urban areas, urban gentrification that's going on that is something that you really can tap into. So don't think just in the conventionally. Think about what the other possibilities are also. One of the simplest ideas for how to pick a place for your clinic is to think of your metropolitan area and go out onto the edge of it, to go out where the cornfields are, literally, and because that's where the construction is going to occur. That's where the new neighborhoods are sprouting up. And that way you're going to be the first one in your neighborhood because the neighborhood hasn't arrived, and you'll be there and you'll own that corner.
Of course, it's also important to know if that area is the area of future growth. I mean, ideally you have to be in the area of future growth. And over the last couple of years, this has been a little bit more complex than maybe it was in the past. But the key is identifying that area of future growth at the edge of the cornfields and locating your practice right there. That way you're not already competing with other veterinarians in the area. You can get in and get your practice established and get your image and location established as people are moving into the area. If you're moving from a place where you already have an existing building, you don't want to be too far away from that existing building. On the other hand, you also have to bring your clientele with you.
There's different types of practices, and they draw from different types of market areas. So general practice, kind of suburbia. We're still kind of stuck there. Especially in truth, you really want to be central to a whole range of areas to pull from. So in that case, you really do want to be, off the interstate. The emergency is kind of the same, and then CAT and alternative medicine is more of an urban thing process.
And it's interesting, depending on what type of practice you have, you may choose a location for different reasons. So, for example, if you have an emergency practice, it's really important that you can see the word emergency when you're driving up the street. Yeah, absolutely.
That's a basic rule there.
Basic rule.
Right.
On the other hand, if you have a specialty practice that doesn't incorporate emergency, that's not all that important because somebody can find it in daylight when they've got usually plenty of time. And so think about those things as well.
Moving to the actual, the actual site itself versus the market, what we need to look at is will this site accommodate your building? And so we're talking about things, not only the building size, but there's going to be things like parking and setbacks. Parking actually takes up more space on your site than your building does. So people often discount that. Setbacks are real important. And then, if you're dealing with an existing facility, you have to decide, does this facility deserve to be restored or rolled over into the next generation or next century?
And it's okay to let go of an old building.
Yeah, it might be doing you and the building a favor.
Absolutely. And actually, sometimes it can cost more to renovate an old building than to build a new one. It's just astonishing how much a bad renovation can eat up in terms of funding.
In terms of assessing your site, what we need to do here is look for site capacity. We just touched on that. And then we need to look at site visibility, and I think the idea of being able to see the word emergency is critical. You need to be able to see your building and find it. Topography and soils, if you're sucked into building on a landfill and there's refrigerators sticking out of the top of the landfill, that's probably not a good situation, so you need to look at that. Planning and zoning, we've touched on that on some other talks about how critically important that is. And then if you're going into a more urban situation, you need to look at, in terms of environmentally, does this make sense?
It might seem like a really good idea to buy the gas station down the street, but maybe not so much.
Superfund sites usually are overrated, so stay away from it. So in terms of site capacity, your building should be 4 times bigger. The site should be 4 times bigger than the building. That's a pretty simple rule. So. Fundamentally, like Heather was saying, you have to be able to see it to get to it. And topography, I think the refrigerator or the Superfund site are things that we want to avoid happening. Another one that's a real tricky one is that a sloping site is a lot more difficult than you expect it can be. And the indication that the site is sloping is that if there's any sign that it's sloping, then it's sloping a heck of a lot more than you think it is.
Yeah, if the site looks flat,
it's sloping a little bit.
It's sloping a little bit. If it looks like it's sloping, it's 10 feet drop by the time you get to the other side of it.
Exactly.
It's amazing how that works.
Yeah, and that means when you step out the back door, you got a 10-foot drop. Right? So
that's expensive.
Yeah, and cumbersome, especially if you're ADA. So, and then here we are, planning and zoning again. The property has to be zoned correctly, and if it isn't, it's going to take you time and money to fix it. Environmental assessment. Once again, the Superfund sites are not a deal, and you can spend gigantic amounts of money if you stumble upon hazardous waste.
And also, this slide doesn't necessarily touch on this, but if there are other sensitive environmental issues such as wetlands or endangered species or the only toad in North America of this particular species lives on your site, I think it's probably not a good idea.
You can win those battles, but battles cost time and money. So this you have neither. So you also ought to check to be sure you have the right utilities. If you have sewer, water, gas, and power, and these often get overlooked. Yeah.
The problem with not having utilities is that you actually have to build in the cost of what it's going to take to get the utilities to the site into the site development cost. And the site may seem like a deal, but when you figure out how much it costs to get the utilities to it, it may not be so much of a deal. So if you're looking at a site that doesn't have utilities, then doing that homework ahead of time to find out that cost is going to be really important to making your decisions about whether or not you're going to purchase that site. With power, there's single and three-phase power. Three-phase power is what's typically used in commercial, and
it helps the lifetime of your equipment quite a bit, and it's much easier to work with. If you have only single-phase power, it's not the end of the world, but it's going to be more difficult.
Another thing to watch for. Yep,
Yeah.
definitely. So, in conclusion, what you really need to do here is your homework. You need to look at this thing objectively, and that's kind of a key piece to this, because you need to step back from the project, step back from the site, not be overcome with the beauty of it or the cost of it, and really test that it actually makes sense for you. Because if you are going to ignore the fact that it has no utilities, or it's built on a hillside, or it's a wetland, you're going to end up paying for it.